Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Peace be upon you, dear viewers. Welcome to this episode of the Evolution of Fiqh. We had several episodes in the past on this topic of the evolution of fiqh. And we did say in the first episode, if you remember, that this is not the evolution of fiqh only from the perspective of the schools of fiqh, but this is our own evolution of fiqh or understanding of the religion. Because as we understand the different schools of fiqh and the origin of these schools, the students of these schools and their principles, the way they tackled the religion and the source of the religion, which is the revelation, we will have a better understanding of fiqh in general, and we will be able to tackle the topic of fiqh with more experience, more accuracy, more precision. The last episode we did talk about the teachers of the four imams, and we said that each big city in the Muslim world had a university founded by some of the Sahaba. Abdullah ibn Amr ibn al-As in Egypt, Al-Layth ibn Sa'd was a product of this university. Ubadah ibn al-Samit and Mu'adh ibn Jabal in Greater Syria, Asham, and Al-Imam al-Awza'i was a product of this university. In Al-Kufa, you had scholars of the Sahaba like Abdullah ibn Mas'ud and Ali ibn Abi Talib, and Imam Abu Hanifa is a product of this university. In Basra, Anas ibn Malik and Thabit al-Bunani and Hamad ibn Dinar, who was the teacher of Al-Imam Abu Hanifa, a product of this university. In Al-Kufa also, Al-Imam Sufyan al-Thawri is one of the scholars of Al-Kufa. Imam Malik in Medina was a product of a university founded by Umar ibn al-Khattab, Uthman ibn Affan, Zayd ibn Thabit, Abdullah ibn Umar. In Mecca, Abdullah ibn Abbas founded a school from which graduated scholars like Muslim ibn Khalid al-Zinji and Sufyan ibn Uyayna, who were the teachers of Al-Imam al-Shafi'i. Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal was from Baghdad in Iraq, and he did have exposure to the scholars of Kufa, Mecca, Medina, Al-Yemen. Imam al-Shafi'i also was one of his teachers, and Imam al-Shafi'i, as we explained in the last episode, had extensive exposure to all the schools of fiqh that existed during the time of the four imams. Today, inshallah, we will be talking about some of the most popular students of the four schools of fiqh. This will give us a better grasp of the four schools of fiqh and the scholars who subscribe to each one of those schools. For the Hanafi school, the direct students of Imam Abu Hanifa were people like Abu Yusuf, Muhammad ibn al-Hasan, Zufar, and some of his main followers, even though they are not his direct students, are scholars like Imam al-Karkhi, Imam al-Sarkhasi, Imam al-Tahawi, al-Zayla'i, and Ibn Abidin. This is not a comprehensive list by any means. These are just glimpses, idea about some of the main students of the different schools of fiqh. Some of these students, by the way, were more strict in their following of the imams than others. And you will particularly find this in the Shafi'i also and the Hanbali schools. In the Maliki school, you will find the direct students of Imam Malik, or some of the direct students of Imam Malik, to be great scholars like Abdul Rahman ibn al-Qasim, Abdullah ibn Wahb, Ashab ibn Abdul Aziz, and Al-Qa'nabi. Some of the students of Imam Malik who were not his direct students, but the followers of Imam Malik, who were quite popular and known in the history of Islamic fiqh are people like Al-Qurtubi, Ibn al-Arabi, Ibn Abdul Barr, Al-Qadi Iyad, Ibn Rushd, Al-Shatibi, and many others. As for Imam Shafi'i, his main or some of his main students included Abu Bakr al-Humaydi, Al-Rabi' ibn Sulaiman al-Jizi, Ismail ibn Yahya al-Muzani, amongst many others. From the latter generations, scholars like Al-Ghazali, Al-Nawawi, Al-Dhahabi, scholars like Ibn Kathir, Al-Subki, Ibn Hajar, Al-Suyuti, all of those are Shafi'i, are followers of the Imam Shafi'i. Al-Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal had many followers. Many of them, by the way, were of the collectors of al-hadith, because we said that one of Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal's main points of interest was the collection of the hadith and reports of the Prophet ﷺ and the Sahaba. So you'll find great names like Imam al-Bukhari, Abu Dawood, etc., to be of the students of Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal. His direct students who took his madhab or his school of fiqh or way of thinking about fiqh were his sons Abdullah and Saleh, Al-Athram, Abu Bakr al-Marwazi, which is different from al-Marwazi. Abu Bakr al-Marwazi is one of his students, and he had another student called Muhammad ibn Nasr al-Marwazi. And these are all of the students of Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal. From the latter generations, there were great scholars like Imam Ibn Qudama, Ibn al-Jawzi, Ibn Rajab, and Imam Ibn Taymiyyah and Imam Ibn al-Qayyim as well. These are all from the school of Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal. You'll find that some of these followers were more strict in their following of the school of the founder of the madhab than others, particularly in their writings. In their writings, sometimes they strictly follow the school of their imams, and sometimes they do not strictly follow it, and they have their own opinions that may be different from the opinion of the imam. This is a very important point, because sometimes people think that Hanafi madhab must necessarily be the opinion of Imam Abu Hanifa. This is not particularly true. In fact, many times the opinion that is considered to be the strongest in the Hanafi madhab is not the opinion of Imam Abu Hanifa. It is the opinion of one of his main followers. It could be the opinion of Imam Muhammad ibn al-Hasan, it could be the opinion of Abu Yusuf, but not necessarily the opinion of Imam Abu Hanifa. This is important because this gives us the insight into the madhabs. The madhabs were not only the products of the founders. The madhabs are the products of several layers of scholars of different specialties, several layers of scholars, transgenerational, of different specialties. Sometimes, some of them were experts in hadith, some of them were experts in fiqh, some of them were experts in tafsir. Imam Al-Qurtubi, for instance, is a Maliki. He's an expert in tafsir. Al-Imam Ibn Hajar, an expert in hadith, was Shafi'i. Al-Imam Ibn Taymiyyah, an expert in aqidah, creed or belief, is a Hanbali. You'll find imams like Ibn Abdul Barr, Ibn Rushd, and other imams who had various specialties. They all contributed to the madhab. Everyone contributed from his own point of strength to the madhab of the founder. Now, certainly the madhab took the name of the founder, but that does not mean by any chance that the madhab is entirely the product of the founder. Now, our next point is to talk about our role, our position. Now, what should we do? You know, you have different madhahib. You have the Quran and the Sunnah. You have the different madhahib. What should you do? Should you go directly to the Quran and the Sunnah? Should you abide by a particular madhab? Should you do this strictly or not strictly? How should you go about this? First of all, we cannot afford to ignore the heritage of the Imams, the heritage of the different schools of fiqh. Like I said, these are great assemblies of jurisprudence that were transgenerational, of hundreds or thousands of the greatest scholars of Islam. You cannot ignore that heritage. You cannot overlook that heritage. But certainly, excessive zeal may result in excessive harm. And this harm can lead to the dissension and the disagreements between the followers, and certainly can lead to chaos in the ummah. And this did happen. It is not an imaginary thing. It did happen at one point where people did not marry their daughters to a follower of a different madhab, for instance, or people did not feel comfortable praying behind a follower of a different madhab, and this is certainly an evil concept that will lead only to the division of this ummah, which is meant to be a united ummah. It is meant to be one ummah, united at all times. Any divisive force must be condemned, because any divisive force is not in the best interest of this ummah. We as Muslims are one body. This is the message of the Prophet ﷺ to us. This is the advice of the Prophet ﷺ to us. Al-Muslimu lil-Muslimi kal-bunyan. A Muslim to his brother Muslim are like a building or a structure. Each part of it strengthens the other. يَشُدُّ بَعْضُهُ بَعْضًا. Therefore, we need to approach the madhahib in a way that will not lead to division, will not lead to the breakdown of the ummah into smaller parts, and at the same time will not completely ignore or overlook that great heritage of ours. To be able to do this, there is a certain approach. We will learn about it after we come back from this break, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. In the first part, we said that we will be discussing the approach to the madhahib that will protect the ummah from division, and at the same time will honor that heritage and benefit from that great heritage of ours, which is the heritage of the different schools of fiqh or different madhahib. To approach the madhahib, our approach will be based upon our level of knowledge. Some of us are students of knowledge, and some of us are not particularly interested in becoming students of knowledge or scholars. Certainly, all of us must learn some fiqh. As we indicated earlier in one of the previous episodes, the Prophet ﷺ said, طَلَبُ الْعِلْمِ فَرِيضَةٌ عَلَى كُلِّ مُسْلِمٍ وَمُسْلِمَةٍ. Seeking knowledge is obligatory upon each and every male and female Muslim. So to learn how to pray, to learn how to fast, to learn how to offer pilgrimage to Mecca once in your lifetime, to learn how to do Umrah, to learn how to do the mandatory acts, and to learn how to stay away from the prohibitions, how to stay away from the drinking of wine, the eating of pork, envy, hatred, the gossiping, backbiting, all of these prohibitions. You cannot come and say, I did not know it was unlawful. You had to learn. You had to learn, because there is no way for you to know except by learning. The Prophet ﷺ said, إِنَّمَا الْعِلْمُ بِالتَّعَلُّمِ. Having knowledge is by acquiring knowledge, is by seeking knowledge. So to have knowledge or to become knowledgeable can be only a result of seeking knowledge. So it is mandatory upon us to learn the amount of knowledge that will help us stay on the straight path, perform the obligatory actions that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had asked us to do, and stay away from the prohibitions of Allah, whether these prohibitions are prohibitions of the limbs, prohibitions of the tongue, or prohibitions of the heart. So all of us have to seek this certain amount of knowledge, but not all of us have to become students of knowledge or scholars of fiqh or hadith or tafsir, the exegesis or interpretation of the Quran, and so on and so forth. For the student of knowledge is recommended by the majority of the scholars to follow a particular madhab. Why is that? Because following a particular madhab will make him more systematic in his knowledge, will arrange the different folders in his brain. If you imagine his brain to be like computer chips, it will arrange different folders in his brain. It will make him more systematic in his pursuit of knowledge. His fiqh also will be precise, will be exact. It will not be conflicting with each other. Like his fiqh or his understanding of the chapter of purity will not be conflicting or contradictory to his understanding of the chapter of prayers or zakah or hajj or different transactions. So to follow a certain system, to follow a certain recipe will help him and will protect him from confusion and from conflict between the different topics of knowledge, conflict in his mind between the different topics of knowledge. Now, if you start to study under a particular school of fiqh, you will certainly follow it. As long as this is what you're studying, you'll certainly follow it. But as a student of knowledge, once the proof comes to you, and the proof is clear, whether it's from the Book of Allah or from the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, you must follow the proof. Remember what we say in the testimony of faith. We say, أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وأشهد أن محمدا رسول الله. I bear witness that there is no God but Allah, and I bear witness that Muhammad is his messenger. We do not say I bear witness that Abu Hanifa or Malik or Shafi'i or Ahmad is his messenger. We say I bear witness that Muhammad is his messenger. Now, do not misunderstand me to mean that it will always be easy for you to figure out that there is a conflict here between the scriptural evidence and the position of my madhab. Many times we're too hasty to make such decisions when in fact there is no conflict, and in fact the opinion of your madhab is the correct opinion. I'm talking about these particular conditions, these particular issues or topic that you have studied extensively, that you had encompassing knowledge of, and you have come to a clear conclusion that your madhab is not in agreement with the Book of Allah or the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. This is when you need to say, no, I have to stop here. I have to follow the opinion of Shafi'i. If I am Maliki, the opinion of Imam Shafi'i seems to be more in agreement with the Book of Allah and the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, because that is the revelation that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had asked us to follow. Is it mandatory upon the student of knowledge to follow a particular madhab? It is certainly encouraged that the student of knowledge follows a particular madhab, because, as we said, it has many benefits. We mentioned just some of them. But is it mandatory? Can we consider someone who is not a follower of any madhab a scholar? Certainly we should, and certainly we can consider someone who doesn't follow any madhab a scholar or a student of knowledge, because our great scholars, even the founders of the four madhab, they themselves did not follow a particular madhab. Imam Malik did not follow the madhab of Imam Abu Hanifa. Imam Shafi'i was a student of Imam Malik, and he did not follow the madhab of Imam Malik, and he founded his own. The same applies to Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal. He was a student of Imam Shafi'i, yet he was not a Shafi'i. He founded the madhab of his own. So this practice of the scholars that were the founders of the four madhab, along with the practice of many of the other scholars of Islam before and after them, shows us that it is not mandatory to follow a particular madhab, even though we recommend it for the student of knowledge. You have great scholars in the history of this ummah who did not particularly subscribe to one of these four madhab. You'll have scholars like Dawood al-Zahiri, like Ibn Hazm. You have scholars like Shawkani, like Al-Albani, Siddiq Hassan Khan. All of these scholars from the past and the present, and probably the future as well, did not follow any particular madhab, and they were scholars, notable, trustworthy scholars. So excessiveness in any direction can result in errors, and we should not be excessive in any direction, either excessive in our contempt for the madhab or in our zeal for the madhab. The student of knowledge, after he had finished studying his madhab, and he seems to be very confident in his madhab, then he is recommended, or she is recommended, to move on and to go beyond this and to study other madhab. You'll find the greatest of the followers of the madhab are the ones who expanded their knowledge, the ones who did not stop at the borders of their own madhab, but they sought knowledge from the other madhab as well. You'll find that Imam Ibn Qudama, for instance, he is a Hanbali, he is a confirmed Hanbali, yet Imam Ibn Qudama, being a confirmed Hanbali, when you see his writings, or when you read his writings in Al-Mughni, which is a comparative fiqh book, a book on comparative fiqh, you will find that Imam Ibn Qudama had great knowledge, encompassing great knowledge in all of the madhahib, and not only the four madhahib, but the other madhahib as well that were not as popular as the four madhahib. So that's the course that the student of knowledge should take. He is recommended to start with a particular madhab and then move on after he perfected his understanding of his own madhab to other madhahib. On his way, as we indicated, if he came across any particular issue that he studied extensively and he feels the proof is not with his madhab, then impartiality is extremely important here. To have clarity of vision, to know our greatest Imam is extremely important. Who is our greatest Imam? Our greatest Imam is the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Now, as a a person who is interested in learning the mandatory knowledge only and not going beyond the mandatory knowledge, should I follow a madhab or should I not follow a madhab? This question is a tricky one, because many of us will eventually end up following a madhab if we are from the public. Many of us, by default, as we say, will end up following a madhab. Why? Because you grew up in a certain neighborhood, in a certain location, certain city, certain country, and most of the scholars in your neighborhood or certain location are Hanbalis or Shafi'is or Malikis, a particular followers of a particular school. So by default, you will end up following those scholars because you will go to the scholar that you trust the most, trust their knowledge, and trust their piety the most within your reach in your neighborhood. And they happen to be Malikis, so you will be Maliki by default. Yet, you should never have zeal. You should never have excessive zeal for that particular madhab, particularly because you cannot justify this zeal. If someone asked you, why are you a follower? Why do you follow these particular positions? You will not be able to justify this zeal. Therefore, I think that to combine lack of knowledge with excessive zeal is a dangerous combination that we should stay away from. A dangerous combination that resulted in harm in the future is resulting in harm in the present, and I hope that we will be able to avoid much of the harm that can come from it in the future, inshallah. Next time we will continue the same topic because we're not done yet. I will see you then. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.